Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. I'm still expecting Mr. Jide Ologun, legal practitioner, national development advocate, and fellow Institute of Leadership Coaching and Strategy. Now, the Nigerian government has approved a budget of 142 billion for the development of new bus terminals across the country's 6 geopolitical zones. The approval was granted at a Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by President Bola Tinubu at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Speaking after the meeting, the Minister of Transportation, Seidu Alkali, explained that this initiative marks the government's first intervention in road infrastructure beyond just road construction. The planned terminals will be located in Abeokuta, Gombe, Kano, Lokoja, Onitsha, and Ewu in Edo State. Alkali said the decision to build the terminals came after recognizing the lack of adequate facilities for road transportation in Nigeria, despite its importance. He noted that this gap has led to increased crime, traffic accidents, and arms proliferation along highways. Moving on, the federal government has condemned a Canadian court ruling that labeled Nigeria's 2 major political parties, the APC and PDP, as terrorist organizations. In a statement on Friday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs described the decision as reckless and an unacceptable interference in Nigeria's internal affairs. The ruling stemmed from the case of Douglas Agaraa, a Nigerian who sought refugee status in Canada after disclosing his membership in both parties. Canadian authorities cited intelligence linking the PDP and APC to electoral violence and killings, basing much of the judgment on events during the 2003 and 2004 elections. Ministry spokesperson Kimiebi Ebiemfa dismissed the ruling as baseless, stressing that branding entire parties as terrorist groups was a sweeping and dangerous generalization. US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have concluded their summit in Alaska without reaching a ceasefire agreement in Ukraine. After nearly 3 hours of talks, both leaders delivered a joint statement but left without answering questions from the media. The highly anticipated meeting failed to deliver tangible results, leaving the world to speculate about the future of the war in Ukraine. The summit ended with no concrete steps toward peace or democracy. Now joining me to discuss all of these issues is Ambassador Joe Keshi. Ambassador Joe Keshi, thank you very much for joining us on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show.
It's a pleasure to be with you on this Sunday, Dr. Ruben Abati.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. Well, let's start with the Putin-Trump talks. Very high expectations, but nothing came out of it. Putin made no concessions. Trump, who had been boasting that he will impose heavy sanctions on Putin if he didn't make concessions, did nothing. In fact, Putin was asking even for territory, more territory, Luhansk and Donetsk. And he was the one, who had the upper hand, such that people in Russia have been jubilating. Medvedev, who is the head of the Russian Security Council, has been jubilating and gloating. Now Trump says, oh, okay, it's up to Kiev and Europe to solve the problem. He said President Trump a honest broker. What do you think of this development?
Thank you very much, Doctor. First, I like the way you ended. Neither Donald Trump or the Americans are honest brokers to start with. But what you saw that happened 2 days ago in Alaska is a typical example of when presidents personalize governance, when they do not listen to their advisors, particularly those who have in-depth knowledge of the crisis or complicated issues, issues that are very intractable and that some people have been dealing with for years. So you now have a situation where sycophancy, like we also have here, is overtaking the American system. And the key advisors, knowledgeable advisors, who should have helped the president to prepare for this summit, I'm not too sure that they were involved. But what you saw leading to the conference was the fact that Trump simply do not recognize that there is a difference between estate management and showbiz, and that diplomacy is a different, complicated, game in itself. So you find a situation where he spent weeks playing on the, on the screen, while the Russians were busy preparing for the summit itself. And the outcome is what you saw. They did not listen to the nuances of what the Russians have been saying. The Russian position, Dr. Bhatti, has not changed in the last 3 years. It is the same thing they asked day one, the same thing they wanted day one, that they have been insisting that they want today. Meanwhile, Trump has gone from not supporting Ukraine to supporting Ukraine to imposing sanctions on Russia and saying that, look, if in 3 minutes he could decide, and walk out if there's no proper deal. But here we are. The meeting ended without a deal because the Americans themselves made a mistake in agreeing to this conference without adequate preparation. And so we have a situation where, Ukraine is in a little bit, in a very difficult and challenging situation. But look, again, thank God that, as Farid said, thank God that he did not throw Ukraine under the table. So we'll wait and see what will happen tomorrow when the leaders of Europe and Zelensky himself meet with Trump. But what we need to realize is that Trump needs to realize rather, is that show business, housing asset or asset management is completely different from diplomacy. Diplomacy is a complicated issue. And when you are dealing with a situation like this, you allow the officials, first of all, to do the best they can to narrow the differences, not for you to throw yourself into a complicated issue that, has no immediate solution. And I think that's what played out in Alaska.
Okay, sir. Well, as you said, let's wait for tomorrow when President Trump meets with President Zelensky in Washington, D.C., whether what should have originally been a trilateral meeting that ended up as a bilateral meeting, whether there will be new pathways in terms of, the Zelensky-Trump meeting. But Canada, now under the Canadian Immigration and Asylum Act, a Nigerian, Douglas Agaraa, was denied his appeal on the grounds that, he would like to stay in Canada. And the grounds on which the court ruled is that he had been in Nigeria a member of the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party. And the court ruled that these are terrorist organizations. What are the implications of this for diplomatic relations between Canada and Nigeria? For a court in Canada to just declare major political parties in Nigeria terrorist organizations?
Dr. Bhatti, during the Abacha regime, a Nigerian, I think, was granted asylum in the United States because he made the case and provided evidence that he was arrested by the security and that he was interviewed and badly treated, and that they used iron, on his back and his, tummy. And based on that, the Americans, granted him asylum. So Nigerians have found an easy way of getting asylum from some of these countries. But I can assure you it will not in any way affect relations between the two countries, because this was the court's decision, and the court was, possibly based on the evidence that was provided. I really don't know whether Nigeria put up a defense at this court hearing. But the point I want to make is that this is not the first case. A number of Nigerians have been granted asylum in a number of countries by presenting false reports. There is not even evidence to suggest that they probably injured themselves. But when you look at the signs on their body, they claim that it was done by the security forces. True or false, we do not know. But look, I think it's a lesson we should learn from all this is that we need to do more work within our security organizations on how we treat people that we disagree with, dissidents or criminals or anybody at all. Because people go out and use this. And some of the courts don't understand this. But at the political level itself, I think that the government understand very well, and I foresee no great issue between the Nigerian government and the Canadian government. So I don't really think that this is a serious issue. It's unfortunate, and I think the foreign ministry is dealing with it.
Okay, but to deal with the issue itself, now some Nigerians who are perhaps of a partisan orientation, to be specific, Omoyele Sowore, issued a statement saying, in fact, this is what, he has been saying all along, that, APC and PDP are terrorist organizations, always involved in violence, ballot snatching, and all of that. And he's also a Nigerian. What do you think of that view? There may well be many people like that who demarcate.
No, but look, no, you are right on that. I mean, the successive elections in Nigeria have shown that our politicians are not, our politicians think and believe that the world starts and ends in Nigeria. And they care little about the image of Nigeria when it comes to election. The APC and, the PDP, they are not the worst characters in this. In any case, I just wanted to say that, remember what the NPN did when they decided to overrun the country that led to a number of violent reaction after the elections, and it led to the 1983 or 84 coup, if I remember clearly. So it has been a consistent pattern of Nigerian politicians to rig election, to introduce violence, and INEC, or whatever name they are called successively, have also aided the process. The point I want to make here is that Nigerian politicians and authorities should realize that, that we do not live in isolation. And that whatever we do in this country, virtually every embassy in Nigeria sends report back home. And sometimes they provide very accurate information, illustrating exactly what the politicians are doing. So, Sowore is right to some extent. This is not the first time. And as I said, even under the military, we had the same situation. Our politicians and our leaders should realize that every action they take in this country, that it has an implication that affects our image outside Nigeria. So they need to understand it, but I'm sorry to say I'm not too sure they understand it. What they want is power. What they want is influence. Okay. And they will continue with their bad behavior anyway. Whether last election, the next election is coming, you can see what's happening already. A clear indication that nothing will change. Whether the Canadians rule or not, whether any embassy, makes any point or not, the politicians, as long as they want power, will continue with their bad behavior.
Well, finally, Ambassador, let's come home, because you are also a Nigerian, apart from being a diplomat. Now, this legacy project of creating 6 bus terminals in 6 different parts of the country to ease land transportation and all of that. Well, what do you think of that idea? The last FEC meeting, a lot of ideas came out from there, but they say they want to do bus terminals. How would that help transportation, land transportation?
Dr. Bati, I live in Mabushi, almost directly opposite the bus terminal that Minister Wike built. That was launched in the 2nd anniversary of the government of President Tinubu. As I speak to you, Dr. Bati, that terminal has not seen one bus to start with. But on a serious note, Dr. Bati, the federal government should limit itself to its own responsibilities and stop intervening in what is exclusively local government and state obligations. The federal government, look, Dr. Bati, I can send you pictures of the road between Benin and Asaba, between Uyo and Calabar, and a number of other places, not just in the South, because I visited there recently and I saw some of these things, or in other parts of the country. The federal government should just focus on what is federal government obligations and leave what the states can do for themselves. Look, the governor of, I think, Enugu State just launched a couple of bus terminals all over Enugu State. So why is the federal government getting involved? The federal government should actually, look, if it has so much money that it doesn't know what to do with money, for goodness sake, let the federal government put money on education and health. It will rate, because these are the triggers of development. Let the federal government put more money on agriculture.
Okay.
So if this is done, you will see a complete change in these states. But intervening in state issues when the states themselves have the capacity to do this. In a couple of these states, you are going to put a bus terminal. There are no roads, there are no buses. Abuja doesn't have bus service, for example. You want to go and build bus services in Edo. The governor of Edo has just launched about 1,000 buses for Edo itself. So let them build their bus terminal, for goodness sake. We should stop wasting money if we do not know what to do with money, you know?
I'm sure that many Nigerians will agree with you that there are no good roads in many parts of the country, and yet the legacy project the Ministry of Transportation is thinking about is to build bus terminals. Thank you very much, Ambassador Joe Keshi. Always a delight to have you on this program.